So you ruined your relationship. Could have been with one big betrayal or maybe 1,000 little cuts. Maybe you stopped listening. Maybe you brushed off her needs. Maybe you just got comfortable and stopped to show up in the way that you used to. I can relate to a lot of that because that's exactly what I did. I let the trust, bond, the passion, the tiny things in the relationship slip until we were really nothing more than roommates going through the motions at some point. But what's worse is that I lied to myself. I was just telling myself there was just a rough patch, that things will always work itself out. It always does after all, right? But if I look back, deep down, I had always known that one day a breakdown was really inevitable and that one day that bomb will basically drop. And if you're watching this, I believe you feel the same way. Your bomb has dropped. And now you have that dreaded sense that you're all out of options. But I can tell you this with my full honesty. After nearly 10 years and working with thousands of clients, I can tell you that you have a lot more options and you have a lot more control over this than you think. So in this video, I'm going to show you a new way to start communicating with even the most closed off and the most hopeless partner so that they can actually start to believe that things could actually be different this time. I'm going to show you also the most important mindset shifts you need to make that will make the difference between getting them back or losing them forever. By the end of this video, you'll start to see the path of how you can rebuild a relationship that is more connected, that is more passionate than you ever dreamed possible. But you cannot rebuild a relationship while you're still actively tearing it down. So let me show you what you need to say, or more importantly, what your partner needs to hear to stop your relationship from bleeding out. In our program, we teach what we call the TTH Framework, or Treating the Hemorrhage Framework. So let me show you what this looks like, using an example from my own life and one that I think many of you can relate to. So when I was facing the end of my relationship, I felt a bit panicked and I tried a lot, pretty much everything that I could think of at the time, what I learned at the time. So first I tried a lot of the begging, the pleading, and then I tried the alpha and the red pill manipulative tactics. And then I tried also the logical and guilting route as well. I tried a lot of things. And of course, none of that really worked. And even if it did, whatever results I got from it was very short term. In fact, not only did whatever I did still made her feel like nothing has changed, but whatever I did instead actually backfired. Because she told me countless times here that she felt a bit manipulated. Like I just still didn't get it and nothing I did was ever going to change her mind. So that was when I finally woke up to the fact that whatever I was doing here was just pushing her further away. I did a 180. I completely changed my approach. So the next time she told me these things, that she felt hopeless, she wanted to leave, she wanted to see other people, whatever it is, I was able to respond in a completely different way. And I said something like, hey Sam, look, I understand why you would feel this way. Right now I want to do something a bit different. I actually just want to pause here and listen to you. Just express all your feelings right now. And I want to just say nothing. I want to just stand here and face the music. And I want you to know that I'm not saying this and doing this because it's just another tactic or game that I learned somewhere. This isn't about me trying to manipulate you or make this about myself. The reason why I want to be quiet and just listen is because I've come to realize that I think I'm ready. And I want to finally and humbly admit that you may be right here. I haven't been listening to you. And that you're right that my changes are not coming from a genuine place. And I've been so focused on my own feelings, my own insecurities, my own fear, on what I can say and what to do to change your mind. And I've been so focused on what I will lose that I haven't actually for 1 second, if I can be honest, tried to see things from your point of view and actually listen to what you're trying to tell me. Again, I've been so afraid, so insecure of losing you that I've been completely stuck on saying and doing whatever I needed to do to really get you back. But without ever making the deeper changes, the internal changes to actually mean and deliver on what I do and say, or to be able to follow through on what I do and say. So if I put myself in your shoes, I can honestly totally see how everything I'm doing turns you off even more, because I'm not even trying to freaking understand the real problem here, what you're really saying to me. I mean, I say I do, but we both deep down know that I don't really understand. So again, I can totally relate to why you feel like nothing can or will ever change. I mean, how can it, right? If I don't even have the courage or the ability to actually understand what the problems are and listen to what you're actually trying to say, I mean, how can things change? So again, the only reason why I want to start shutting up and really listen for once in my life is that I really want to stop suppressing or ignoring my deeper flaws. And I want to start to deeply understand the many issues here that I may have and the many unconscious ways that I have hurt you. I know I've hurt you. And I don't want to be the kind of man who's scared of admitting or hearing about his flaws. And I want to become the kind of man who can actually grow from these type of moments, see my flaws, issues, insecurities, and really tackle them head on. So that I don't really hurt people, yourself, anyone else in my life really, as much as I seem to have hurt you. So for this conversation, would it be all right if I just close my mouth, just invite you to just let all your most honest and true feelings completely out there? So now that you see a TTH in action, let's break it down section by section here, so you can understand exactly what I said and why I said that. And so you can also understand why this framework has worked so well for over 6,000 clients in my program right now. So the TTH really is broken up into 5 different components. And using the example TTH that I just gave, let me show you what they are and how to use them and why they're there. So first here, the first part of the TTH is that we have this thing called the statement of action, where we intentionally choose to delay our response and listen rather than to speak. So again, this is not delaying the conversation per se. This is just delaying our response. And this is with the part where we want to show our genuine intention for what we're going to do here. Now, naturally, when we say this, when we say they're going to delay our response, based on our previous patterns of behavior, they're likely to misinterpret our actions and run on the assumption like this is just like Jeff trying to manipulate me again and so on. So to preempt that, we use what we call a negation of resistance. So this is when we are clarifying that this isn't a manipulation thing, but a sincere effort to actually understand. And next, the third part is what we call the old self and implications component, where I acknowledge the past mistakes and their impact. So this is the point here, is to show what I'm saying now is again not a tactic, but born out of genuine introspection and a desire to put myself in her shoes. Then we move to the new self and implications, because the acknowledgement that you understand the problem alone is not enough. We need to actually show here that we have this commitment, this trajectory to real change, to real empathy. And then finally, there's a closing that reinforces that you're on their team and invites them to continue sharing with you going forward. So here are the 5 components, but within the TTH, there are also 4 subcomponents. So we have opening the door, which in my example is implied when I say, hey, I actually want to just listen more and speak less. And we also have the transitions and grounding between each of the main components. So we include this so that as we move from one component to the next, we actually continually anchor back our initial intention of listening more and speaking less, and ensuring that the conversations remain clear, so that it's very clear every step of the way why we're saying all of this stuff. And one of the reasons why the TTH frameworks work so amazingly in our program is because it's so versatile. And it's versatile while also not losing any of the efficacy and genuineness for application. So it's not only so much more effective than any script you can learn, because you can really learn to use it to fit any and all situations or interactions you find yourself in. And because it's so versatile, another massive advantage is that the odds of it backfiring when done correctly is actually very, very low. And even if our clients face resistance on the initial TTH, they can stack another one on top of that one to turn that resistance into another positive moment. Well, I gave one example here. You can really slot your own customization to each of these components to basically make infinite variations of the TTH to fit any situation. And just a fun fact here, in a few of our group calls now, a lot of our coaches have even challenged our clients to come up with conversations or interactions that clients think they cannot use a TTH for. And for 2 straight hours in many of these group calls, our coaches constantly show that they can be used perfectly for any situation. A lot of our clients even make it a game now to TTH everything. So now that we've broken down and you understand the what, how, and why behind the TTH framework, its components, I encourage you to go back to the start of this chapter and actually watch it again in full so that you can really internalize the what, how, and why behind each component effectively. A very important warning here. The TTH framework is not a rigid script, and it's not a quick fix tactic. If you misuse it, you do so at your own peril. Many people have done this. It never turns out well. The power of the TTH really lies in a genuine understanding and the adaptability of it, which is why in our program, people can only use the TTH after some internal shifts and after some deep, deep practice to allow us to understand the why behind everything that we say in the TTH. If you simply regurgitate without understanding your why of what you just said, or using it for the wrong reasons, or using it in the wrong context, that will backfire on you freaking hard. Because if you look at the TTH here, you will realize that every section requires you to have done some reflection or realization about your own issues, about your flaws, about your patterns beforehand, which is why we give our clients what we call the daily practice processes, or the DPPs for short, for the TTH itself, as well as a lot of resources for the internal shifts to help them make some of these realizations so that they can see how they can use a TTH at any moment without preparation. Because here's the catch. Knowing the framework isn't enough. If your mind is still in panic mode or stuck in the old thinking, whatever you say will be poisoned with this tinge of ingenuineness. And worse, if you do get the resistance eventually, which is inevitable, or the pushback, which is also inevitable from the TTH framework, you will either freeze up or force the issue. This can get real tricky, real fast, if you don't have the right tools and the right coaching to guide you. And that's exactly why we created our Relationship Rebel program. So inside this program, we don't just teach you what to say. We help you train your nervous system on the subconscious level, on that mindset level, so that you can use frameworks like this naturally, especially in the most difficult moments. So again, if you are serious about mastering this and want guided support, check out the link in the description for more information on how to enroll. But for now, let me show you what needs to happen internally for the TTH to work. And that is shifting your attention from outcomes to processes on what we call effort and surrender. So to understand the second point, we need to understand that another massive reason why the TTH is so effective is that it prevents you from falling into what we call the perfect product paradox. This is the paradox where the more perfect you try to appear, the more you actually push your partner further away. So note, for example, how the TTH framework that I used above contained 0 instances of me being or trying to look like the perfect product. Instead, we actually sometimes encourage our clients to admit that they may have flaws and are imperfect. But the crucial part here is not just not falling for the perfect product paradox, but also how the TTH, when done right, inherently plants implicit and explicit seeds of your perfect process. And that is the seed that you are not only humble enough to be aware of what the issues are and how those issues have impacted your partner, but you also have the trajectory and also the process to go past your flaws. But to get this right, you have to have the deep internal shifts. Because if you're a regular here, you will know how much we stress the importance of changing your paradigms and making the internal shifts. So right now, I want to focus on one of the more fundamental mindset shifts, quite literally the catalyst for everything we teach here at Relationship Revival. And that is the effort and surrender to the process, aka untethering. So again, here in this word, effort means that you're taking intentional, daily action to show up differently. And surrender means that you're not clinging to a particular outcome or circumstance or some perfect product, ego, and so on. This is a state, again, where you're not doing it all just to get your partner back, but you're committing a new way of doing things, whether your partner notices right away or not. Put it simply here, effort and surrender is about doing because you are, not because you want to have. Because without true effort and surrender here, you'll always just be doing just to have. And when you're here, nothing you do will seem genuine. And it will reek of that perfect product paradox. And your partner can really sense this, no matter how well you think you're hiding it. And not only that, you will not be able to keep your changes consistent and effective, especially when your changes will inevitably trigger the paradox of change. So to understand the paradox of change here, I know that was a big word. I want you to put yourself in your partner's shoes. Or imagine that you've been trying to get someone to change for years. But no matter what you do, and say they don't change, they don't follow through. In fact, they have promised to change in the past, but you never see it come to fruition. And suddenly now they're acting, they're talking differently again. If they do this, would you believe them right away? Or would you be doubtful first? Would you be suspicious? So again, the paradox of change here is a guaranteed part of the reconciliation process, where the bigger you change, the bigger the resistance you will get, the bigger the doubt, the bigger the suspicion you will face in the short term. So what happens here when you're tethered? So you're doing because you want to have, and then you face the paradox of change, POC as we call it. And you will sense here that your having is kind of slipping away from you. And this is really when people get hopeless, want to find new partners, for example, or they email me asking like, do I have any hope here? Is this worth trying to save? So here, when you face POC, your tetheredness will make it so that you cannot help but reek of ingenuineness and you won't be able to help yourself but feel hopeless and give up prematurely. And to understand why that's really bad, giving up prematurely, let's imagine here again that you are changing and your partner resists you because she does not trust your intentions of why you are changing. So she expresses that resistance, the suspicions, the doubt, and her resistance and her suspicions made you quit, made you stop, made you get hopeless. What did you just tell her? You just told her that she was right to doubt you. You got called out, that's why you stopped. Okay, so now you know the what, how, and why behind the TTH. You also know the internal engine you need to build to underpinning the TTH. Now let me show you what's actually waiting on the other side of this and what's at stake if you don't. And this is where I think a lot of people fail. Now let's talk about what happens if you try to shortcut the process here. If you skip the part about internal shifts or try to fake your way through your TTH without really doing the work underneath the TTH. So now imagine this. I want you to imagine you see someone that has hurt you a lot and you now want to get out of their lives. And you see them changing, but you can feel, right? You see them doing different things, but you can feel that they're doing to have. They're doing those things because they want something in return. You also sense that they don't intrinsically enjoy the work. They dread the changes they're making. And worse, when you express your resistance, your doubt, your suspicion, they get all mopey, they slow down, they stop the changes entirely. What would you think here? How would you feel? Pause here and really think about it. For me, I would think to myself, bro, this person can't keep this up because they hate every moment of it. For me, I wouldn't be able to put my finger on what's going on here, why I feel that way, but I would feel icky. I would feel like something is a bit off. So here, your partner, right? When you're doing to have, your partner will feel it. Even though you think you're hiding this, you'll come off as very manipulative and they'll assume you're faking it because you kind of are. And instead of rebuilding trust, you will just confirm that, hey, they may actually be right to leave. And you're going to keep your partner stuck in what we call the hope and disappointment cycle. So every time you do or say the right thing, they'll feel this flicker of hope, only to be let down all over again. And each time, it'll make it harder for them to allow themselves to be hopeful in the future. And to make it even worse, because of your tetheredness, you will also take your partner pulling away in this negative way. You'll interpret it in a very negative way. And you'll basically give up or slow down at exactly the wrong moment. And when you give up at the wrong moment, that will just confirm her suspicions about your changes or the lack of genuineness in your changes in the first place. And so you can see the cycle goes on and on and on. And to make it even worse, as you sense your partner pulling away, you'll most likely, if you're like most of my clients, either try to double down on whatever perfect product appeals that you learn from internet or books. But again, without the right internal realizations, nothing you do or say will work. Again, so you try to do this perfect product paradox, they'll push you further away, or you will find yourself feeling dejected, hopeless when you stop your changes. When you do these two things, you will just have proven to your partner right to doubt you in the first place. And again, this cycle just goes on and on and on and on. So the only way out here is you gotta do the internal work to untether. Base your doing because you are, not because you want to have. Doing the internal work to change your internal paradigms, so about how you perceive resistance, about POC, the paradox of change, to fuel your ideas and your abilities to use a TTH. And later on, you can also use what we call the frameworks. You want to do the internal shifts too so that you can keep yourself in this thriving state, to be able to lean into resistance and thrive through resistance to slowly reverse that negative confirmation bias, just like you saw that client did. So mastering the TTH framework and then later the full frameworks to fundamentally change the way you communicate, to plant seeds of safety and perfect process every single time. If you want to see just how powerful this work can be, make sure you watch the next video where you'll hear the story of one of our clients, someone who was once exactly where you are now, but through real effort and real surrender, internal shifts, untethering, and this new approach to communication, they can create this environment where their partner chose to come back to them voluntarily without even them asking for it.